Everybody like, hey, are you ready to go? Ready to go? Everybody like, hey.
Alright, what is going on, y'all? Soul here and welcome back to my story mode. In my last video, I asked you guys what mechanics you would like to bring back for 4th gen remakes. Y'all gave me a lot of very detailed, very in-depth opinions on what you guys felt would be best to bring back for the next couple games. Thank you guys so much for the feedback. It was an awesome read. It was very interesting. Some of y'all gave me some books to read, whole novels, okay? It was very interesting though, and I appreciate all of it. Now, I did ask a question in my previous video, however, that's not what this video is necessarily about. We're gonna talk about that topic in the next video, so be sure to look forward to it. I cannot completely take credit for this idea. Somebody brought this up, and this is something that I didn't even really consider as an idea, but once I got it, it kind of flowed. So I'll make sure to put them somewhere on the screen. I'll make sure that their comment is right up there for you guys to see because they completely deserve credit for this. So to move more into the main objective of the video here, we need to talk about one of the more important things about a video game, and lately one of the most important things is ironically what happens afterwards. And unfortunately, we're in a period where replayability is a very important part of a game's worth. You can sit there and tell me that I'm wrong, but I'm not. A game's longevity only adds to it that much more. It gives us something to keep coming back to, and if we want to restart, we just have a very long series of things to look forward to on our next playthrough. Pokemon is in no way a stranger to this concept. Pretty much since about day one, we've always had longevity in Pokemon games because we always wanted to literally, as the title says, catch them all. The Pokédex is what kept us coming back. We wanted to do everything in our power to complete the Pokédex. So even after becoming champion, we still roamed the region and we still went around catching every Pokemon that we didn't catch in our original playthrough. Unfortunately though, as the games grew, so did we. I'm sure that a lot of you can agree that literally just finishing the Pokédex is not gonna cut it for all of Aftergame anymore. I'm sure the Game Freak recognized this too, considering the fact that we've been getting serious Aftergame for quite some time now, starting with Gen 3 with the whole Battle Frontier situation, Gen 4 with its own kind of Battle Frontier situation, and so on. And now we've moved all the way up to Gen 8 where we have raid battles and Dynamax adventures and things like that. But no matter how often we talk about it, 9 times out of 10, original Pokemon fans will always come back to this single sentence. The Gen 2 remakes had the best aftergame we've ever had in a Pokemon game. And you know what? It's super hard to argue that considering the fact that besides 8th Gen, Heart Gold and Soul Silver are probably the longest amount of times I've spent in the aftergame of a Pokemon game. You can call me weird and you can absolutely fight me on it, and I will fight back, because you cannot sit there and deny the fact that having access to 2 regions wasn't one of the biggest things we've ever seen. At the time, I didn't play the original Gold and Silver, so I had no idea that was even a thing. But I can't even imagine how big that had to be for the original players of that game. That's a massive little world right there. And all they had to do was upscale it and give us some phenomenal music, and we had a fire game. So with that, I was looking at this comment and I said it in my last video. However, I think that getting Galar as aftergame could be one of the best potential ways to satisfy a majority of the fans right now. I can literally hear some of y'all sharpening pitchforks right now. Just relax for a second and listen to me. Remember that you do not need to agree with me, okay? However, I am going to explain myself in this video as to why I think that Galar could work very well as 4th Gen's aftergame. First, I'm going to go ahead and explain to you exactly how it would work. For starters, getting there would be exactly as you'd expect. We wouldn't do so until we became champion, and then afterwards, we would take a boat or a plane to the Galar region from Sinnoh. Becoming the champion, you know, the strongest trainer in the region, I don't think it would be all that crazy if we got news of an upcoming tournament in a completely different region, somewhere where we could test our strength as champion somewhere else. And hey, you know, who's to say that you have to go by yourself? Who's to say that Barry, Lucas, Dawn, maybe even Cynthia can't come along and test their strength somewhere else as well? Considering that your rivals are pretty much runner-ups to be champion and Cynthia is a dethroned champion, I'm sure they would want to partake in something very interesting to test their strength too and maybe get stronger so that eventually they could come back and take your throne again. I imagine that it would play out a lot like the original games where you would get all 8 gym badges to participate in the tournament. Obviously, this would be a very different take for all of the original cast because this region does not have an Elite Four. So most likely we would battle our way through the tournament, possibly beat all of our adversaries that we came with again, and then we would either battle Leon or maybe play it out like Gold and Silver and battle it out with the original champion, Victor or Gloria. A little strange that we haven't gotten to battle the original champion of the region since Black and White 2. So quite honestly, I think now is definitely the time. Now, as far as in-between story stuff, I can't lie to you, I don't think I could come up with anything that would satisfy exactly everybody because really, we don't need that much story in the post-game. As long as we have something to do chasing after just another championship, I think we'll be just fine with that. And then after we claim our throne for the second time, or maybe the third time? I don't know how many times at this point. We're gods, bro. We cannot be stopped. But after we gain that throne yet again, we're probably going to spend a lot of our time in the refurbished underground, max raid battles, Dynamax adventuring, and doing whatever else we decide to do online. Now, keep in mind, this is just a base idea. This isn't something that I've extensively thought about to the point where I need to write the plot or anything like that for the comeback of Galar or anything. However, I do think this could serve a lot of good in the long run. First up, let me explain why this potential idea could do so much good for us. While this does sound like a very lazy idea, just bringing over an entire game and putting it into another to serve as post-game, you have to think about this for a second. It actually solves a ton of problems, primarily the Dynamax problem. This allows us to eventually re-unlock Dynamaxing in raid battles without having to destroy any of Sinnoh. This is also a way for them to not go back on their word when they said that Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing is an exclusive thing to the Galar region. This way they're not simply stepping on their own foot and they can literally stick to the story that they worked out themselves in the previous games. This would also allow the story to focus on literally something else, whether it be a prior gimmick or something new. I don't know about a new gimmick, I feel like that's a little bit of a stretch to get right now, especially for a remake. However, I'm just saying the point is they could focus on literally anything else besides Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing as the main issue of the story. You know what that also means though? This means that we could most likely, if we get something like Mega Evolutions or even Z-Moves, I'm not sure about that one, however, we would be able to introduce and bring over a different mechanic to see how it fares up against Dynamaxing. Sit there and lie to me. Tell me that a Mega Evolved Blaziken versus a Gigantamax or Shifu wouldn't be the craziest battle. Although more than likely that Blaziken would probably get mopped. This was not a good matchup. It worked a lot better in my head, but you see what I'm saying here. The potential is very there. Mixing up the gimmicks was always a good time back in 7th gen because we didn't know if our opponent was going to whip out the Z move or the Mega Evolution, alright? It was very threatening, and it could go either way if that happened. Double battles? Oh, forget it, dude. Forget it. But it's good because you know for a fact that they would never mix the two. You could not Mega Evolve and then also use your Z move afterwards. So we know for a fact that if we were to get anything like Mega Evolution in Galar, we know for a fact we wouldn't be able to Mega Evolve and then Dynamax. That would be a disgusting mix. Disgusting mix. It would be kind of godly though, I can't lie to you. Aside from just direct battle aspects, we could look at the bigger picture and realize that it's very possible that this could take place in the future. And don't go crazy, when I say future, I mean maybe a couple years later. This would make it so that instead of just re-meeting characters, we could meet a more developed and interesting version of characters like Hop, Marnie, and Bede to see what they're up to. Maybe not Bede as much, I don't really care about that guy, I'm still gonna whoop his ass when I go to get that fairy badge over there, but Lord knows I would love to see what Marnie and Hop are up to now that Hop's a scientist, or a researcher I guess, and Marnie's probably working towards overpowering her older brother. Alright, she could be the gym leader for all we know now. Who knows? I'm very curious. And then one of my final things is the fact that if they're smart about it, if they're really truly smart and kind of nice about it, we could get access to the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra too. If for whatever reason we got access to Galar, we know for a fact that those places exist, so there's no way that Game Freak's gonna be able to sneak that past us. Also, if they wanted to go ahead and just break some records real quick, Adding all of that would make these the biggest Pokemon games to date, in the most literal sense possible. Now, I know that for some of y'all this may sound like the fattest pipe dream of all time, this sounds absolutely ridiculous, but to be honest with you, I don't see why not make this happen. It avoids so many problems on both ends and even adds to the game so much that honestly, I think it would be foolish not to do something like this. However though, I know some of you are thinking this is a very ridiculous idea and it would be very stupid to do this, okay? You're thinking very opposite of me. Now, let me see if I can get in your heads a little bit and let's try and figure out why there are downsides to this idea. For one, I can't even sit here and lie to you, this would be a very cheap method. Okay, and more than likely, not a ton will change in the graphical department. I imagine that as 8th gen remakes for 4th gen, we would be running with the same graphical style that we had in the previous games, meaning that we would have a few new models here and there, but for the most part, a lot of things that we had in Galar would stay more or less the same. Porting over the region with just very minor touch-ups here and there would really just make that a very cheap decision on their part, which they could very much do to save a quick buck. At the end of the day, we do have to look at the bigger picture and realize that Game Freak and Nintendo are companies, and companies will do what they need to do to make money and save as much money as they can. Meaning that they could very well run with this idea, but simplify it so much that not a lot would change besides just having our main cast in this other region. No grass would change, no trees would look better, all of the general setup that they had for the wild areas would stay exactly the same, weather-wise and all. Simply put, instead of building upon and improving the idea, they just reuse the entire asset, which would be kinda lame. Also, it wouldn't even be guaranteed that this would take place anywhere in the future, meaning it's very possible that we'll run into the exact same characters maybe a month or so after the events of everything that happened in the original Sword and Shield, and not really a lot would change in that time. Personally, this is more of a personal one for me, but I think I would just be so devastated to see a same age Barry and Hop in the same room doing the exact same animations. I think I would want to shoot myself. And not that it would be a bad thing, but I think I'm more curious just to see where all the characters are at in their lives down the line. Not like a couple days later. We already know where they're at. They're still working on their whole situation. But just seeing them a couple days later, oh, a new champion's here, let's just battle them, and then call it a day. That's a little weak. Oh, and speaking of things that aren't guaranteed, there is no possible way to guarantee that Dynamaxing, just because it's in Galar now, as aftergame, doesn't mean that it can't affect the main game in any way. Trust me, I would love to believe that with this idea we could keep Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing out of Sinnoh to keep it safe, but there's no for sure way to confirm that that can't happen. It could literally be as easy for them to just go like, wait a minute, Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing out in Sinnoh, this is supposed to only happen out in Galar. What's going on here? We weren't prepared for this, we have to stop this. How angry are you right now? Honestly though, it's as simple as that. That can still very much happen and there's no safety lock on Sinnoh. So, sorry guys, but I know a lot of you don't want that to happen, but there's no guarantee. We never know what they're gonna pull. And you know what's the craziest thing? I don't even think that's the worst possible part about all of this. Like I said a couple minutes ago, when you look at the bigger picture and realize that this is a company that we're dealing with, they could very much sell this, all of this, as DLC. Sorry, but there's no rulebook sitting in front of them telling them that they aren't allowed to sell this as DLC later down the line and call it longevity because we needed stuff to do in the base Pokemon game and now we're getting it as DLC so that we don't have a reason not to buy it. We can complain day and night, but they could sit there and look at us and be like, hey, this is along the lines of everything that you wanted, right? You wanted Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing out of Sinnoh? Boom, have it in Galar. Oh, you wanted longevity in your game? Boom, here you go, here's all of Galar. But you gotta pay for it. Otherwise, that's your fault, not ours. This is what you asked for. Have y'all noticed that I like to get in my own head and make them out to be the biggest, evilest company in the world? Because I certainly noticed that. I'm very much dramaticizing this. It is not exactly going to play out that way. It's probably not going to play out that way at all. However, this is just me being dramatic and saying that this is very much a possibility for them to do. They got us to buy the original DLC with us not even knowing exactly what we were going to get out of it, and they made a buck. They could very much pull that again because DLC is just a thing of the future now. It's modern and they can take as much advantage of it as they want because they know we're always going to be curious. One of my final points here is the fact that we'd probably end up spending more time in Galar than Sinnoh, and I'm not exactly sure if that's what we would want to do again, considering that's exactly what we do now. I'm sure that with 4th gen remakes, we're going to get plenty of new assets and mechanics and stuff like that that's going to keep us a little bit tethered to Sinnoh, but overall, you can't lie in saying that we spent a lot of time in Galar. We spent a lot of time collecting Pokemon through raid battles and Dynamax adventuring and stuff like that. Hell, you know what's funny? I'm speaking about that right now as if we're not doing that right this second. People are still very much shiny hunting through Dynamax adventures and catching the best Pokemon they can through raid battles. This is something that's still happening. So that means that coming back to Galar means that we're just gonna end up coming back to do Galar things. And while in the short term of things, yeah, it does sound very neat to come back and see all these interesting characters again, if you consider them interesting or whatever, but it could very well backfire and become a very boring aftergame, probably the most boring aftergame that we've ever seen if they don't do it correctly. I'm sure that a lot of us can agree that even as Pokemon fans, the last thing we want to end up doing is repaying for the exact same games over and over again, which is kinda hella ironic, but I digress. They could very well do this wrong and we could get absolutely upset all we want, but we do need some kind of aftergame, and that is a possible way that they could give it to us. Well, that about does it for all of the downsides that I considered for this idea, so why don't we go ahead and talk about my overall thoughts. Let's start it like this. We're in February now. We're about to hit Pokemon's 25th anniversary. Pokemon has been on this earth for 25 years now. That's amazing. Now, personally, I don't know about y'all, but I personally can't think of a much better way to celebrate than by handing over remakes with a throwback to the remakes of 4th gen, or rather 2nd gen. I don't know why I keep saying that. 2nd gen remakes was probably one of the best displays of love and care that we've ever seen in a Pokemon game. And what better way to celebrate 4th gen remakes than by doing what they did back in the day, allowing us to go back to another region in remakes. Now, everybody and their mothers could sit there and tell me that there's many better ways to celebrate Pokemon's 25th anniversary. However, I think that this would be a solid start if they do it correctly. For me personally, I'm not asking for too much, I don't think. A little bit of upscales in the graphics, maybe a little more to do in the Galar region, maybe utilizing some kind of Mega Evolution or a different gimmick if anything, and just simply keeping Dynamax where it's supposed to be. I think I would be a pretty satisfied customer personally. I don't know about y'all, but it really doesn't take very much to satisfy me, honestly. But here's where we stand with the idea. It has the greatest potential for very good longevity overall, and I wouldn't mind it as long as they didn't try to sell it as DLC. It really does suck to think about it that way, but considering the fact that that's exactly what they did with the last games, it's really not all that out there, and it's very possible, so we have to keep it in mind. Anyway, I just want to sit here and remind you guys at the end of the video here that this is all just an idea, a very raw, bare bones idea. I can't even call it speculation because it's not guaranteed to happen. This isn't something that is even crazy likely, okay? It's just a possibility. That's all. Just a way to satisfy both ends of the spectrum. Those that really enjoyed 8th gen and everything that it had to offer because they thought that they were perfect games, and those that don't want 4th gen sullied by their least favorite games in the series, 8th gen. But hey, that's just about all I've got. So, you know exactly what time it is. I want y'all down there telling me everything you guys thought about this idea. What do you guys feel regarding this concept? Absolutely ridiculous? Genius? Let me know. You can tell me I'm the dumbest man on planet Earth for thinking that we could have an entire region again in games this far ahead. As per usual, I'm going to be down there with all of you, hearing out all your ideas. I want to hear what you guys think too. I want you guys to tell me if you have better ideas regarding what we could get for Aftergame. Let me know. Anyway, I'm going to skedaddle on out of here. Thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the absolute greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and possibly consider subscribing for more content just like this, and maybe some more fun stuff down the line. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time.